Baby, what's going on? This is Davey D, and you are now tuned into WWE Champions Chat.
Let me ask you this, Lee. Are we out of time and need to shift over to WWE TV, or do
We're
you want to
getting
dive
close.
into some other numbers? Because we can hit other topics, other numbers in a future episode. That's fine too.
Maybe we could rapid fire introduce some, but then yeah, I've got some juicy stuff for the let's talk about the fall of capitalist empires and Vince McMahon. So
Well, let's go there. Let's go there. We are on the road to Crown Jewel, and really, I'll say this: it feels like my speculation only, allegedly. It feels like we're on the road to WrestleMania already. Typically, they
yeah,
don't start using that language until Royal Rumble, but I don't ever remember a year that the season, quote unquote, season premiere of both Raw and SmackDown were treated almost as premium live events. This past week on WWE TV, they pulled out all of the red carpet, all of the pomp and circumstance. They had Triple H on the show. They had Undertaker come back and close out
on
NXT.
NXT.
I mean, they made
Yeah.
Cody Rhodes. I mean, just it's crazy what's happening right now on WWE TV. And yet, I think what you want to talk about and what I'm talking about are actually related. A new season
Yeah.
is the language we keep hearing over and over and over. What do you think that's about?
Okay, so here's the 30-second recap, right? So Vince McMahon allegedly alleged some alleges and was removed from the company, right? And then he allegedly made some power moves that you can track through Wall Street Journal and other things that put him back in power. That in the WWE Universe version was the Nia Jax return, right? You clearly saw, oh, Vince is back. Nia Jax closed out Raw. Like that was clear as day. Then things got a little muddy for a while. They did the merger, right? So now UFC and WWE are under the same parent group, TKO, and Ari Emanuel is now the boss. Vince McMahon, for the first time in who knows how long, but at least 40 years, has a boss. Think
Hmm.
about that. Think about what that means. And he did it himself. Real world wrestling example here right now. I cannot tell you how prescient the promo that Vince did when he brought back the NWO and then butchered that whole angle of the NWO coming back. But he sat in the chair, he looked with his like veins popping out of his head. I'm gonna kill it. I'm gonna kill my creation. And that's true to life. Like literally, he was losing control, not in his alleged, but he was losing control of the company, and he did the NWO. He hit the disaster button and pulled out the stops. He came back into a power, but then sold the company. He's still one of the chief shareholders, but now he has a boss. And Ari
Hmm.
Emanuel, it has been documented. Fightful announced it. Wrestle Talks talked about it. Ari Emanuel said, the way I like my companies to run is that the people who are in charge of things like creative have the ability to make creative decisions unhindered. And I am putting Triple H. Paul Levesque is 100% in charge of creative. And now look at the product, right? You have the Nia Jax Returns episode of Raw, and then you see like things like Tegan Knox was supposed to wrestle, and Vince goes, nope, Natalia, boom. And all of a sudden, Natalia and Becky wrestling and all that. All of these things are happening. And then it's like we turned a corner, and this season premiere is almost like a reset of the WWE. And don't miss this, because this is something so big that it has not been this way for 40 plus years. Vince McMahon has had 100% say for 4 decades of your life. I'm 41 years old. That is my entire life. Vince McMahon has called every shot in that company. And now Vince cannot overwrite creative. He's not even supposed to send in text messages or rewrites. He can't tear up the scripts like allegedly happens all the time. Triple H is now in charge. And Rusty, I bet you could tell me why you see that happening. What's going on the road to Crown Jewel?
Well, a few things. First of all, wow to everything you just said. Wow, wow, wow. And I have to believe on some level it was that terrible mustache that he decided to grow out that was actually the first domino to fall that brought down the house of cards that was the McMahon Empire. The
Can I
second, well,
interject
you have
one
something,
thing?
yeah, 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 of
Sorry,
course.
just no. I just don't want to lose the momentum of what you just said. The mustache was absolutely the smoking gun, right? Because Vince McMahon is on record as saying he does not grow facial hair because, quote, I cannot let it win. I cannot let the hair, like, he is such a control heavy person that even the hair on his face has to submit to his will. That mustache is the clear sign of a descent into madness.
So you're
Okay, your
saying
second
the
thing.
mustache was singing "Bow down to the game."
Something like that.
So I like okay. So
Scooby-Doo villain mustache.
first the mustache. Secondly, the guy who's sleeping with your daughter is now doing your job, right? That's the
Ooh.
that's the ultimate act of villainy that Paul Levesque could have instituted over the House of McMahon. We are now in this weird Game of Thrones situation where, where people's betrothal and who they join with in matrimony and in thy bed is suddenly mattering as far as who's running the kingdom and who's sitting on the throne, right? Maybe
Wow.
that's exaggerated. Maybe that's fantasy. Let me say this too. It has never been more clear than the use of the same consistent cast as to who's in charge. When you start seeing Gargano, you know Triple H is at the helm. When you start seeing Ciampa, the black and gold, the kids he came up with, the Tegan Knoxes, right, that he made into this incredible show, and that fans were rabid about, AEW almost didn't stand a chance because NXT was so good, and yet that began to slip, and Vince asserted himself into it, and it began to unravel. The road to Crown Jewel, the question you were ultimately asking. Since this
Yeah.
is a numbers episode, I think the first Crown Jewel was a glorified house show. And what the Saudis said in response was, we want this show to actually matter. We love that you come. We love that people spend. It's good for the economy, but we don't want to be a joke to your company. We don't want this to be an international show where you come and do nothing. And so I think Crown Jewel now has to have title changes, that they're mandatory within the economic contract between WWE and Crown Jewel. I think the Saudis have brokered a deal that says we want the show to be significant. In fact, we want it to kick off the season that starts the road to the largest PLE of all, WrestleMania. So I think
Mm-hmm.
because we're talking numbers, because we're talking money, because we're talking spending, I think there's actually like a deal that, like, okay, we're not going to tell the American audience, but really this is where the new season of Raw, SmackDown, and Crown Jewel, they're like flagship moments in what's going to
Mm-hmm.
happen 6 months from now, or however many months, 5 6 months from now.
Well, we're talking numbers, and you hit on a few things that have some known numbers. Now, again, citations to Wrestle Talk primarily, and then they use Fightful Select and others that go off this. But the first Crown Jewel, if I remember correctly, was a larger moneymaker than almost all WrestleManias, period. Because the
Wow.
Saudi Public Investment Fund, the Crown Prince, said, like, boom. And so then you fast forward to like Greatest Royal Rumble, but you talk about how they wanted things to be. And we know, on record, that the Crown Prince asked for Yokozuna and the Ultimate Warrior to be a part of the Greatest Royal Rumble, not even knowing that the real life human beings were dead, right?
Oh, wow.
And so like they were calling out like, hey, we want these guys from the Attitude Era. So that's why you saw Chris Jericho in his almost AEW transition go fight the Undertaker. That's why you saw the Greatest Royal Rumble bring back certain people that you're like, wow, I didn't know that. How would that person get there? And so numbers wise, Crown Jewel is a WrestleMania level event in terms of dollars that the company gets. And obviously TKO is paying attention to that. The other numbers that are important are Raw and SmackDown. So the way that they have structured, and please don't change this, because the only reason I'm able to keep up with pay-per-views is because they're now PLEs and they're on Peacock in America, right? But Raw and SmackDown, the deals that they've brokered before were $5 billion deals for Raw, SmackDown, give or take. And now they've garnered a new $5 billion deal for SmackDown moving over to USA Network. They haven't yet gotten the deal for Raw yet. But if SmackDown, like you heard Triple H say, I'm giving you a promotion to the new general manager of Raw, saying basically Raw is the A show. The reason they use that language is because they are actively shopping. And this is where Vince McMahon is being used. This is why he's off creative, is because he needs to go broker these deals. Vince McMahon, Nick Khan, Ari Emanuel, and these others are trying to get a astronomically bigger deal for Raw. So if I'm a company that's paying $5 billion for a TV show, I want to see something good come from it. I don't want to see, Gilbert versus Mantar. I want to see LA Knight blow up the arena. And by the way, quick aside, and I'll turn it back over. I don't get to watch SmackDown, but you also know the numbers are working in a certain direction because they have now immediately been putting clips, like long clips of the show on YouTube. And so I was able to watch the majority of the highlights for SmackDown. And just the fact that regardless of what you think of his wrestling ability or not, LA Knight not only did not feel out of place in that promo against the entire bloodline, but he owned Roman Reigns in that promo segment. And it was just like, oh, you just proved you belong here. So I talked a lot. You take it.
That's great. So speculation, and we should probably just put the word allegedly on the title of this podcast. It's all alleged. Everything we say, every word out of our mouth is alleged. But a few notes. One, didn't the Saudi investment group allegedly also purchase Scopely? Isn't that the group that owns the very game that we discuss and talk about?
That's not. That's 100% disclosed fact. Yeah,
allegedly.
Yes, the Saudi Public Investment Fund owns Scopely. So yes,
awesome.
Yes.
And I would say even at the time of that purchase, the game started getting a lot more generous. The MLC characters started getting a lot better. The stakes. I think there's a correlation between this. When the Saudis invest in something, they want the stakes to be raised. And I think that's what's happening with WWE TV. And I think that's what's happening with these PLEs. And I think that's what's happening with Scopely in the game. The stakes have gone up. It's a better product for it. That's my opinion.
Allegedly. I would say that our own version of Triple H is the real reason. This is not inside baseball. I've never had a conversation with the man, but how fitting that the moment Gerson became an employee of Scopely, we started getting characters that were relevant in that exact moment, right? He came on and surprisingly we got Bloodline. No, not quite. Try again. I couldn't hear it. So give it.
Bonjour, WWE Champions.
I just sounded French. Not even French.
Well, it's French Canadian, right?
Hello, champions. This is Gerson. I'm L because I come after G. And yeah.
I want to preview a character for you today.
That's just not what Gerson. Dude, I've told you this before. My kid listens to this podcast every once in a while. And is like, "Did you get Gerson on? Is that Gerson? Like your
man.
natural voice? If you were French Canadian, you could be the heir apparent to the Gerson throne."
I love it. I love it. I wish I had his roster and his good looks. Allegedly, I heard the Hulu deal might be going away with WWE. That's just whatever. We're at this point now where all these mass comms companies are bidding over archives and shows, and I have heard that ABC, ESPN, Disney are in the bid for Raw. So there could come a day where you can watch Star Wars and Pixar and WWE wrestling all on the same app, and
Doctor Who and Doctor Who
and Austin Powers apparently.
What?
No, just kidding.
What?
I don't know Doctor Who.
Doctor Who.
What is that? A lightsaber?
It's
what
a sonic screwdriver. We've got to talk offline. We've got to talk.
Men in Black, it erases your memory, right? It's the same thing.
Not quite. It's a screwdriver.
I've just lost all memory of who I am and what I'm doing.
What we were talking about.
Yeah, WWE TV. We're on the road to WrestleMania. Titles are going to change at Crown Jewel. And recently, the tag titles changed hands after the shortest title run in recent history of Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso lost the belts back to the Judgment Day after Jimmy Uso showed up on Raw. Apparently Roman sent him to Raw to be a do-better.
A do-better. Yeah. If you want to talk about the influence of what we think to be Vince McMahon's little interference era that he had there versus where Triple H is, I could clearly see like Triple H is taking the Bloodline story. Jimmy betrays. They're building this something great, and then Vince gets back. He's like, "Wait a second, Jimmy's supposed to James Uso, is that his name? I don't know. James, is he supposed to get him over?" And so then Vince puts him back, ruins all of Triple H's stories. I think maybe Vince even gave Cody and Jay the titles, because how like Vince is it to say, screw the tag team division, here's two single stars that I want to push, let's just give them the belt. That is like historically accurate Vince McMahon moves right there. And then Triple H comes back in power, is like, all right, reset button. I was doing something with the Judgment Day. I've got plans for Jey Uso. I've got plans for Cody that now I think, Rusty, I think Cody can actually finish this. I think there's no more hindrances in the way. We'll see. But I think Triple H took it back. He just said, give me back my baseball cards. I'm going to play him the right way.
And I'm sleeping with your daughter.
I mean, he did do that on that one segment that John Cena was in the crowd for as a fan. But whatever,
Okay, Lee, wrap us up. I'm done for the day.